The following is a fan-made reading of the Pale web serial novel by J.C. McCrae. It describes extra material published after Chapter 7.3 and contains spoilers for that chapter. The original text can be found at palewebserial.wordpress.com. If you'd like to donate to the author, please go to patreon.com/wildbow. Thank you for listening. 7.3 Borrowed Eyes Comic. Depicted. Alexander looks into the visor flap mirror of a car he's in. He has gray at the edges of his hair and lines in his forehead.
I'll talk to Richmond and Fraser about the guns for Ed's frisky little parasite god. He said he'd pay us double what the guns were worth if we handled the purchasing and took that worry off his mind. Doesn't want to break up the perimeter or spare any hands for a shopping trip. I did a reading on the finances. If I overbuy, show up with enough, he'll pay for the excess, then let us buy it back. Free guns.
Depicted. Alexander leans in closer, his eyes taking up the majority of the mirror.
Alexander?
It's good. Go ahead with that. Do you have enough in your account?
Yeah, the account is good. What are you... Oh, don't let me distract you.
It's fine. Keep talking. Depicted. Alexander holds the tip of his wand to the mirror, touching the pupil of his left eye. It loses its shine.
Byrony wants us to find a family. Usual sources are dry, so we'd have to track one down ourselves. I did a lot of reading for that one before we left. Byrony doesn't have a lot to offer these days. She got distracted, let things slide. So she's not that useful from a practical standpoint.
Immortals make good friends. They stick around.
I'm not sure she's even equipped to stick around, Alexander. She doesn't have the materials for the ritual. She'd need a lot of help. I know she's a friend, but if we're picking and choosing jobs, this is a bad one to choose. Again, from a practical standpoint.
I keep you around because you're practical, why? Let her go. I'll see about penning an apology to her for being otherwise indisposed. Depicted. Alexander in grayscale. Eyebrows and hair gray/black. His eye no longer has the pupil/iris, but a bleeding hole. A sphere with the color/appearance of the pupil/iris is at the tip of his wand, held to the side of his face. From this point on, unless otherwise stated, color is much more muted, silhouettes are dark, and text appears black on a white background.
A few of our long-standing colleagues are aware that something's going on with the school, Alex.
Depicted. A bird follows a gentle curve across the page, swooping and turning. A hand holding a wand indicates the same path, with a swish. Of course, but they should know our record. Bellingers may stumble, but they do not fall. If any of our colleagues are so impatient that they cannot wait to see us prove our worth yet again, then that will be to their detriment.
Do you want me to stick around for this one?
No need. I have this well in hand. I have since 5 years ago. Go see to Ed and his parasite. If Marie is to be swayed at all, it will be with that idle curiosity. Just let me attend to this little one here.
Little one?
Use your eye, why? Those gifted eyes of yours.
Ah, poor fella.
Depicted. The bird perches on Alexander's wand. The iris/pupil at the wand's tip is larger. A car's side view mirror shows a similar image, reversed, but a scalpel instead of a bird and wand. The sparrow has hollow circles for eyes. Do you live here, little one? Depicted. A compass-esque image with a sparrow in the center. Again with the hollow circles. The points are distorted, and some are marked with dots. Yes, you do. Perfect. You've seen so many things and have so little idea of how much you'd recognize. Then how would you like a meal? Let's call it a reminder, little sparrow. A little taste of someone else's self and that self's perspective.
How on mankind's earth did you get a taste of that man, Alex?
With patience and keen attention. A drop of blood he hadn't realized he'd shed. A charm of mine directed the Culisade to draw blood. I directed our traitorous Nicolette to milk that droplet from the fly, performed days before he declared war, and carefully preserved so it would not clot or dry. Nicolette is especially good at that. Or, she was.
Are we speaking of her in past tense already?
I am, but note the or. A morsel of bread, touched once by the blood of Lawrence T. Bristow. Depicted, left, a bit of bread, blood at the corner, sitting on a bloodstain.
He never knew what bit him.
You'll like this one, why? if only because it's a good reminder of why you're on my side when so many of my apprentices have fallen prey to short-sightedness.
Is it that I'm next in line for your seat as head of the Bellinger Circle? I like to think that the only thing that could serve as a suitable reminder of that would be you having a close brush with your mortality. No offense.
I'd hope at least a small factor in your reasoning is that I'm a dangerous enemy to have with a long eye towards the future. Case in point, another something to add to the bread. 3 collected tears from 5 years ago.
I'm sure there's a story.
Depicted, the same bit of bread, blood still at one corner, now a bit damp at the uppermost corner. Some of the most effective ploys make the worst stories. Even when we were all pursuing our projects and spending days and weeks together, building the school, establishing networks, I had a sense I'd come to loathe the man, so I took precautions. I put some long-standing friendships on the rear burner so I could honestly tell Lawrence that he was one of my closest friends. He let his guard down, and I gave him my shoulder to cry on after a 19-year-old student came to her senses and left him.
A terrible story, yes, but not for the reasons you're implying. You know, laughs aside, my mom was apoplectic the last time I talked with her.
A good word, apoplectic. Over Seth?
Yeah.
I have talked to the family about Seth on many occasions. I have talked with your mom, why, at least 3 times, asking her if she would take a hand in helping with him, take him in for a few weeks to give him a change of scenery or have a word with him. She could never spare the time. Seth couldn't even spare the time for Seth's self-improvement, and she's upset. He turned his back on the Bellinger family when he turned on me and sided with Bristow, and he couldn't even voice that he'd made that decision we all knew to be true.
Surely you can see...
I can see next to nothing now, why? I've plucked the pupil and the colour from my eyes, and they sit now in abstract, impaled on my wand. I can only make out what my sight needs must.
You know what I mean. Seth was a...
Depicted, in the middle, portrait of Seth, slouching slightly, not smiling, similar hair to Alexander, reddish-brown and thick black eyebrows. He was a loser. Let's not mince our words.
He struggled, and I wonder if you kept him in a place where he struggled so you could stay confident you could utterly destroy him when and if it was convenient.
What would you have done? Why? You have good eyes, and you'll likely succeed me some day. You're to be one of the most renowned augurs in North America in the coming decades, and possibly a teacher at the school. Surely you've wondered what could be done about Seth. Have you read the cards, rolled the bones, consulted powers? Or are you taking after your mother in this, taking issue after the fact when you wouldn't lend your resources to him before?
I could say I was under the impression you had a plan.
And now you know. I've told you, impressions are dangerous when you're an augur. We seek verifiable truth, those precious futures and realities that can be described as fixed by the threads, by the hours, by the blade, by the bow, and by the pale. Anything else is foolhardy.
I suppose I'm a fool, then.
I gave him lessons, opportunities, encouragement. I gave him the opportunity to make friends, to make enemies and rivals who might spur him on. He's enjoyed a precious room among the senior students for a year now. I tried to give him work, but you yourself told me.
He couldn't take the important jobs.
At least, like this, he can provide something to the Bellinger family, and pay us back a small amount.
That bird wants his morsel, it seems.
A change of subject. I won't complain. Yes, but first, our last bit of seasoning. Birds of this sort do enjoy a steady diet of seed.
Seed? Alexander.
Don't worry, this wasn't collected in the same era that I loaned Lawrence my shoulder to cry on. I didn't collect it myself, nor did I have Nicolette collect it.
Small mercies.
I commissioned the, harvesting of this one. I think even now Bristow is looking forward to a visit with a young French-speaking woman on his way back to Winnipeg.
Was that what that stop of ours was about?
I told her that all she had to do was coo over his titles and the name-droppings of important people he knew, and he could theoretically produce without any need for exertion on her part. Alas, it was not so, but she bravely saw to the task.
Is the traditional trifecta of blood, sweat, and tears not enough for you?
That pompous little blowhard sweats so easily and so frequently I can scarcely imagine the sweat on his brow has any value at all. I have to imagine that he spent 10 times the hours tilling at that one lonely field and turning up seed than he has spent doing any honest labours. Depicted, bottom left, bread with a seed-dusted crust. A touch dry, but there was no skilled preservation of the material, as our Nicolette used to do with blood. But it shouldn't matter. Blood must flow, and it is ruined if it clots or dries. Tears are shed, and no care is needed if they are promptly collected, unpolluted, and seed is either sown or spilled.
Can we move on to the part of the little ritual here where we stop talking about the seed?
Here we go, my eager little creature. Enjoy your morsel, seasoned with Lawrence's visceral self. Eat of him, little watcher. Come to know him in your gut. You, who share an address with him, though you cannot know it. Let that be the second tie that binds you and your witness to him and his. Depicted. Bird with hollow eyes with mouth open to accept the morsel, which is black, set within a triangle and circle with yellow, red, and blue tips on the triangle. And for the third? Depicted. Wand, blood red, cuts through the page. That today is the day your mutual fates are decided. Yours by scalpel, Lawrence T. Bristow's by my word. I have read the cards, I have consulted the powers. I can say this with certainty now. Let it be known, said, and sworn. If Lawrence T. Bristow is alive at the end of this summer, it is only because worse fates have befallen him. Let this be our third link. See what he sees. Depicted. Bird with the crumb/triangle/circle thing in the hollow eye. Know what he knows. Depicted. Triangle inset in circle, with red/yellow/blue portions to the triangle. Closed eye in triangle. Bear the man's sight for me. Depicted. Man's eye inside circle, inside triangle with the colored tips. Depicted. Scalpel with red line cut through page. The latter half of the page is littered with feathers and blood droplets, which get denser towards the bottom. Now I, in keeping with the old ways, may first set aside the liver, seat of life, vessel of humours yellow, for reading. Depicted. Little liver and feather, sitting in blood.
Annoyingly healthy. How?
Hush, 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 hush. A necessary first step. It is in the ropes and in the coiled threads that the real stories are told. That sight is woven, and yesterday's digestions are stored. Depicted. A pool of blood, ringed by feathers. The wand's tip lifts out a bit of small intestine. Depicted. Upper half of the page. A grayed-out, blurry building with a jutting front porch/cover for the path. Words illegible. Windows are dark. Sky is white with bands of black. Two black silhouettes stand by the door. The red lines that separate this from the text have blood leaking out.
How are we doing?
We'll know if I can make out what Lawrence sees in this place. Depicted. The same image as before, but the intestine is lifted up by the wand, forming a triangle that can be peered through. The building appears in daylight, practically glowing with magic circles and patterns. The two silhouettes from before are white and covered in text, with halos and symbols dripping or rising off of them. The porch/cover above the front door bears the name Sergeant Hall. I dare say we're doing well, why? I'll let you go in just a few moments.
I'll hardly complain if I have to put off hunting the damned god parasite.
Depicted. Alexander holds the wand to an image of the eye that's missing its iris/pupil. Intestines wind up the wand and into the black void. It's been a convoluted process, but I do think we're set. From Lawrence's blood, tears, and seed to the mouth and eyes of a bird. From the bird's eyes to mine own. I'll use Lawrence's sight like this for a while.
Okay, I'll look after Ed. Do you think you'll be done by tonight? Should I pick you up?
I should be done by tonight, yes, if he isn't living here. I'll swing by his home. Maybe if there's time, I'll visit some old acquaintances in the area. Knowing Bristow, he's likely offended a few of his neighbors in this community.
You think?
Depicted. The eye, slurping up the last of the intestine into the blackness where the iris/pupil should be. Blood sprays. The eye, closing. The eye, opening, now black, framed by feathers. There is a pupil and iris, but the iris is red and contains a pile of intestines in black. All right, tell Ed I say hi. Here, for the upholstery.
I've got funds in the main account, but sure, thanks.
Depicted. Center top. Old woman's silhouette, but her face is cracked. She's backed by a halo with an orange crescent, black spikes/horns growing out of the halo, and black charms reminiscent of swords dangling from the black spikes. At her forehead, value 89. Other text appears on her cracked face, but is restated later. An eye with 3/4 circles appears at her shoulder. Text. Bound by 3 vectors. Secure. Text down her body reads, "Alone in this world, as she will always be. Her awareness is at 25% and has held steady there for 5 decades. Jeanne Preston was witness to horrific attacks by corrupt elementals in her mining town, British-occupied territory in India, and was a sole survivor. As a forewarned, Jeanne Preston is a ticking time bomb, her life prolonged until such a time as she stepped onto a similar situation and others of what she saw. So she will vastly elevate the level of the situation and may cause an explosion of aware at an already critical time, has PSD, and may agitate elementals and spiritual forces as her own disposition worsens. Other factors include the abandonment of her children, which worsen her mood, and 1394, and a hormone by her eldest daughter to leave her inherit to Clem Robert.
My dear, I haven't seen you around before.
It's actually my first time here.
Oh, are you looking to move in?
I'm not actually. I was friends with a man who runs this place, once upon a time. Would you know him? Lawrence Bristow?
I do. Fine old man, very caring. He sits with me to do the crossword on Thursdays.
I don't suppose he's in?
He's not, but his niece is at the front desk.
His niece? She'd be of an age to do that sort of thing, I suppose. I remember him telling me of her doing something for kindergarten. How the years pass. Depicted. Face and shoulders of the old woman. The number 89 at her forehead. She's noseless, her eyes and mouth hollowed gaps in her face, which is cracked. The eye and, bound by 3 vectors, secure, appear at her shoulders, as does the start of the text above. Faded text. Jeanne Preston, lesser forewarned. Age, 104, twice widowed, begat 3 girls, Jean, Nina, cut off. Survivor of spiritual retribution, Chal, British colon, cut off.
You're too young to be saying that, sir.
Faded text, collector class green, tier 4, secure in core diagram, cut off. I do have some grey hairs, Jeanne. I'm Alexander, by the by.
You've got many more years ahead of you, Alex. Look at me. How old do you think I am?
That's a dangerous question for a lady to ask a man, isn't it? There's no right answer.
One of the benefits of being old, Alex, is that you cease to care about your pride or what others think. Be honest. Your best guess.
I would guess 104.
Clever boy. I've only met a handful who could get within a few years, let alone be as accurate as that Lawrence. He was one of them.
He likes his information dumps, apparently. I'm guessing Ted Havens is one of the others who guessed it?
Yes, gosh yes. If you were hoping to talk to him in Larry's absence, I'm afraid I don't think Teddy's around. I'm sorry, I hope you didn't come too far to see either of them.
It's not a problem at all,
Miss Preston! Oh, one of my favorite young ladies. I don't suppose you're married, are you?
To my work only. I'm a teacher and a headmaster on hiatus. Depicted right, Clementine in Alexander's spirit sight. Pale, a plate on her forehead that bears the number 4. A collar reads, bound, 2 seals, breaking, and she has the eye at her neck, only a sliver there. A halo with a 7-pointed yellow star in it appears behind her head.
How lovely. Clementine, dear.
Miss Preston, you know people fuss when you wander about outside.
I'm fine. Stop fussing.
Arlene, yes, over here. Are you looking for Miss Preston?
Oh, thank you. Thank God. Thank heavens. Pish, I'm fond of you, Clementine, but you can be the worst narc here.
Let's get you back home. I'll come in for a visit later. I've just got to run to the corner store, then wrap up some work.
A teacher and a headmaster, Clementine? Nothing wrong with an older provider?
Oh my God. Sorry about that. It's not a problem, Miss Robert John. I don't believe I told you my name, did she? Did not. Fourth, are you? I beg your pardon? Lawrence Bristow values you more than you would believe. Would you give me a few minutes of your time? Depicted. Final image. Clementine. No eyes. No mouth. Only an X inset into cracks. The foreplate at her forehead is cracked as well, as is her shoulder. Bloodstains frame the bottom part of the page. This has been a fan-made reading of extra material from the web serial Pale by J.C. McRae. The original text can be found at palewebserial.wordpress.com. If you'd like to donate to the author, please go to patreon.com/wildbow.